I once got my appendix removed to avoid opiate withdrawal.
First off, philosophy is a confession.
Philosophy is a confession. Go love somebody that you don't like. Hey, what's up, knowledge seekers? Thanks for clicking on the link. WTJKnowledgeDrops back with another reaction video and series for you. More on that in a second. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. If you are a returning knowledge nomad, as usual, we don't have the time to express my gratitude for your support. Thank you so much. If you stay to the end, you'll know why. If you're new, hello, my name is Wesley Travis Johnson. This is my channel, WTJ Knowledge Drops, where spirituality and science meet. And I sprinkle in a little knowledge, being a stroke survivor that left me paralyzed on my left-hand side, and escaping opioid addiction. I've been through a few things. If I can't tell you what to do, I can definitely tell you what not to do. And I might actually entertain you a bit. Believe it or not, I have never watched one episode of the TED Talks. So I am super excited to get into this. Hopefully you guys are excited to rewatch it with some added commentary. But I'm super excited to start going through these. And I don't know why I haven't watched them yet. I probably should have, but I haven't. Anyways, this is the first one is going to be Your Brain Hallucinates Your Conscious Reality. Anil Seth. And this is actually going against everything that my channel has been about so far. We've been on the spiritual side of it, where consciousness occurs outside of your body. And I have a feeling this is going to be a Western materialism in your head type deal. Let's see where it goes. Let's get into it. As usual, if you're new, once the video starts, if you back out, your device will explode. So don't back out. And I'll tell you some more about my situation at the end as well. Alright, shut up, Wes. Let's get into it.
So just over a year ago, for the third time in my life, I ceased to exist. I was having a small operation. My brain was filling with anesthetic. I remember a sense of detachment and falling apart, coldness. And then
the last time I woke up from anesthesia, I woke up from getting scalped, basically. I had my skull put back in after being out for 2 months. It was out for a month when I was in the induced coma, and then it was out the whole time that I was in the rehab facility learning how to swallow, talk, and everything. My skull was out the whole time. I had to wear a helmet. Anyways, when I woke up from the anesthesia, the first thing the doctor asked me was, what's your pain level on a scale of 1 to 10? And I just started screaming 10 because it felt like my head was on fire. I just got scalped. I thought that was funny how the doctor asked me what my pain... I'm like, dude, I just woke up from surgery. What do you think my pain level is, bro? Anyways, now you know.
I was back, drowsy and disoriented, but definitely there. Now, when you wake from a deep sleep, you might feel confused about the time or anxious about oversleeping, but there's always a basic sense of time having passed, of a continuity between then and now. And coming around from anesthesia is very different. I could have been under for 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 years, or even 50 years. I simply wasn't there.
The whole time, it felt like I was dreaming. But when I did come out, it felt like I was like, "What the hell happened?" It felt like no time had passed. So that is true. But I felt like I was dreaming the whole month that I was in a coma. So now you guys know it's not that bad.
It's total oblivion. Anesthesia, it's a modern kind of magic. It turns people into objects, and then we hope back again into people. And in this process is one of the greatest remaining mysteries in science and philosophy. How does consciousness happen? Somehow, within each of our brains, the combined activity of many billions of neurons, each one a tiny biological machine, is generating a conscious experience. And not just any conscious experience, your conscious experience right here and right now. How does this happen? Well, answering this question is so...
If you are new and you haven't explored Advaita Vedanta, it's like a spirituality-based and not religion. But anyways, it focuses on consciousness and higher self and all that. And it's basically saying that consciousness comes from outside of the body. It's something that everything experiences, from us to animals to plants and trees. Everything's conscious. But I'm gonna bite my lip here and just see what he has to say. But I'm trying to move back past the Western materialism viewpoint. But I'm still interested. I still catch myself going down that route. But
so important, because consciousness for each of us is all there is. Without it, there's no world, there's no self, there's nothing at all. And when we suffer consciously, whether it's through mental illness or pain. And if we can experience joy in...
All of us. Nobody's immune, and it doesn't discriminate. We are all going through it. We're all barely holding our heads above water. Don't complain. You're preaching to the choir. Shut up, Wes.
Suffering. What about other animals? Might they be conscious too? Do they also have a sense of self? And as computers get faster and smarter, maybe there'll come a point, maybe not too far away, when my iPhone develops a sense of its own existence. Now, I actually think the prospects for a conscious AI are pretty remote. And I think this because my research is telling me that consciousness has less to do with pure intelligence and more to do with our nature as living and breathing organisms. Consciousness and intelligence are very different things. You don't have to be smart to suffer, but you probably do have to be alive. In the story I'm going to tell you, our conscious experiences of the world around us and of ourselves within it are kinds of controlled hallucinations.
You do have to be smart to suffer. Ignorance is bliss. The smarter you are, the more suffering comes upon you, unfortunately. But it's alright. We're built to problem solve. You'll figure it out, I promise. Alright.
That happen with, through, and because of our living bodies. Now, you might have heard that we know nothing about how the brain and body give rise to consciousness. Some people even say it's beyond the reach of science altogether. But in fact,
it is called the hard problem. But I did a video on consciousness, and it showed this one part where there was a bean plant that was hanging down, and they had a support pole over here. And it knew where the pole was. It started growing towards the support pole. They moved the pole around. The plant knew where the pole was, and it started growing towards the pole in all different directions. Also, they did a experiment, I guess you would call it, with a spiritual teacher and one MRI machine and a patient down the hall, and a lot of times across the street in another room in an MRI machine. And when the spiritual teacher started praying, a part of his brain lit up, and almost instantaneously, the patient that he was praying for was the same part of the brain lit up. So, if you're a materialism Westerner, that should be really cool to you.
In fact, the last 25 years have seen an explosion of scientific work in this area. If you come to my lab at the University of Sussex, you'll find scientists from all different disciplines, and sometimes even philosophers, all of us together trying to understand how consciousness happens and what happens when it goes wrong. And the strategy is very simple. I'd like you to think about consciousness in the way that we've come to think about life. Now, at one time, people thought the property of being alive could not be explained by physics and chemistry, that life had to be more than just mechanism. But people no longer think that, as biologists got on with the job of explaining the properties of living systems in terms of physics and chemistry, things like metabolism, reproduction, and homeostasis. The basic mystery of what life is started to fade away, and people didn't propose any more magical solutions, like a force of life or an élan vital. So as with life, so with consciousness. Once we start explaining its properties in terms of things happening inside brains and bodies, the apparently insoluble mystery of what consciousness is should start to fade away. At least that's the plan. So let's get started.
I'm pretty sure we receive it as a signal, like Wi-Fi. We swim in it. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty confident. If you're a Westerner, I beg you to explore that. Even if you think it's witchcraft or magic or whatever. At least explore it and then make a decision on it. Shut up, Wes.
What are the properties of consciousness? What should a science of consciousness try to explain? Well, for today, I'd just like to think of consciousness in two different...
Why is there a hand laying there? Somebody tell me in the comments. I need the engagement.
ways. There are experiences of the world around us, full of sights, sounds, and smells, this multisensory, panoramic, 3D, fully immersive inner movie. And then there's conscious self, the specific experience of being you or being me, the lead character in this inner movie, and probably the aspect of consciousness we all cling to most tightly. Let's start with experiences of the world around us, and with the important idea of the brain as a prediction engine. Now, imagine being a brain. You're locked inside a bony skull, trying to figure what's out there in the world. There's no light inside the skull. There's no sound either. All you've got to go on are streams of electrical impulses, which are only indirectly related to things in the world, whatever they may be. So perception, figuring out what's there, has to be a process of informed guesswork in which the brain combines these sensory signals with its prior expectations or beliefs about the way the world is to form its best guess of what caused those signals. The brain doesn't hear sound or see light. What we perceive is its best guess of what's out there in the world. Let me give you a couple of examples of all this. Now, you might have seen this illusion before, but I'd like you to think about it in a new way. If you look at those two patches, A and B, they should look to you to be very different shades of gray, right? But they are, in fact, exactly the same shade. And I can illustrate this if I put up a second version of the image here and join the two patches with a gray-colored bar. And you can see there's no difference. It's exactly the same shade of gray. And if you still don't believe me, I'll bring the bar across and join them up. It's a single colored block of gray. There's no difference at all. So this isn't any kind of magic trickery. It's the same shade of gray.
First time I've ever seen it. I know he said we've probably seen it before, but I never have. First time. Everybody's truth is different. It's a good time to talk about this. Just because you saw something doesn't mean the other person saw the same thing. Different angles. One angle could look like one person caused it, and the other person's angle could look like the opposite. And both of the truths are true, but not to each other. Super weird, man. All right.
Great, but take it away again, and it looks different. So what's happening here is that the brain is using its prior expectations built deeply into the circuits of the visual cortex, that a cast shadow dims the appearance of a surface, so that we see B as lighter than it really is. Here's one more example, which shows just how quickly the brain can use new predictions to change what we consciously experience. Have a listen to this. Sounded strange, right? Have a listen again and see if you can get anything. Still strange. Now listen to this.
Some, would you?
I think Brexit is a really terrible idea.
Which I do. So you heard some words there, right? Now listen to the first sound again. I'm just going to replay it. Yeah? So you can now hear words there. Once more for luck. Okay, so what's going on here is the remarkable thing is the sensory information coming into the brain hasn't changed at all. All that's changed is your brain's best guess of the causes of that sensory information, and that changes what you consciously hear. Now, all this puts the brain basis of perception in a bit of a different light. Instead of perception depending largely on signals coming into the brain from the outside world, it depends as much, if not more, on perceptual predictions flowing in the opposite direction. We don't just passively perceive the world, we actively generate it. The world we experience comes as much, if not more, from the inside out as from the outside in. Let me give you one more example of perception as this active construct.
Very interesting perspective on consciousness. I've never really went down the materialism part of it in depth like this, so this is very nice. It's going to be a good comparison to the spiritual aspect of it.
Process. Here we've combined immersive virtual reality with image processing to simulate the effects of overly strong perceptual predictions on experience. In this panoramic video, we've transformed the world, which is in this case Sussex campus, into a psychedelic playground. We've processed the footage using an algorithm based on Google's Deep Dream to simulate the effects of overly strong perceptual predictions, in this case to see dogs. And you can see this is a very strange thing. When perceptual predictions are too strong, as they are here, the result looks very much like the kinds of hallucinations people might report in altered states or perhaps even in psychosis. Now think about this for a minute. If hallucination is a kind of uncontrolled perception, then perception right here and right now is also a kind of hallucination, but a controlled hallucination in which the brain's predictions are being reined in by sensory information from the world. In fact, we're all hallucinating all the time, including right now. It's just that when we agree about our hallucinations, we call that reality.
I like that.
Now I'm going to tell you that your experience of being a self, the specific experience of being you, is also a controlled hallucination generated by the brain. Now, this seems a very strange idea, right? Yes, visual illusions might deceive my eyes, but how could I be deceived about what it means to be me? For most of us, the experience of being a person is so familiar, so unified, and so continuous that it's difficult not to take it for granted. But we shouldn't take it for granted. There are, in fact, many different ways we experience being a self. There's the experience of having a body and of being a body. There are experiences of perceiving the world from a first-person point of view. There are experiences of intending to do things and of being the cause of things that happen in the world. And there are experiences of being...
And there has to be an observer in the Western part. If there's not an observer, it's just energy waves, frequencies. Yeah, now you know. Shut up, Wes.
A continuous and distinctive person over time, built from a rich set of memories and social interactions. Now, many experiments show, and psychiatrists and neurologists know very well, that these different ways in which we experience being a self can all come apart. And what this means is the basic background experience of being a unified self is a rather fragile construction of the brain, another experience which, just like all others, requires explanation. So let's return to the bodily self. How does the brain generate the experience of being a body and of having a body? Well, just the same principles apply. The brain makes its best guess about what is and what is not part of its body. And there's a beautiful experiment in neuroscience to illustrate this. And unlike most neuroscience experiments, this is one you can do at home. All you need is one of these and a couple of paintbrushes.
Need a hand.
Now, in the rubber hand illusion, a person's real hand is hidden from view, and that fake rubber hand is placed in front of them. Then both hands are simultaneously stroked with a paintbrush while the person stares at the fake hand. Now, for most people, after a while, this leads to the very uncanny sensation that the fake hand is, in fact, part of their body.
I live with this because my left arm feels fake because it's dead. And it feels like it's 100 pounds. But I get this sensation a lot. My left arm being there, it gets weird.
And the idea is that the congruence between seeing touch and feeling touch on an object that looks like a hand and is roughly where a hand should be is enough evidence for the brain to make its best guess that the fake hand is in fact part of the body. So you can measure all kinds of clever things, right? You can measure skin conductance and startle responses, but there's no need. It's clear the guy in blue has assimilated the fake hand. Now, this means that even experiences of what our body is a kind of best guessing, a kind of controlled hallucination by the brain. Now, there's one more thing. We don't just experience our bodies as objects in the world from the outside. We also experience them from within. We all experience the sense of being a body from the inside. And sensory signals coming from the inside of the body are continually telling the brain about the state of the internal organs, how the heart is doing, what blood pressure is like, lots of things. And this kind of perception, which we call interoception, is rather overlooked, but it's critically important because perception and regulation of the internal state of the body, well, that's what keeps us alive. Here's another version of the rubber hand illusion. This is from our lab at Sussex. And here people see a virtual reality version of their hand, which flashes red and back either in time or out of time with their heartbeat. And when it's flashing in time with their heartbeat, people have a stronger sense that it's in fact part of their body. So experiences of having a body are deeply grounded in perceiving our bodies from within. There's one last thing I want to draw your attention to, which is that experiences of the body from the inside are very different from experiences of the world around us. When I look around me, the world seems full of objects, tables, chairs, rubber hands, people, you lot. Even my own body in the world, I can perceive it as an object from the outside. But my experiences of the body from within, they're not like that at all. I don't perceive my kidneys here, my liver here, my spleen. I don't know where my spleen is, but somewhere. I don't perceive my insides as...
I once got my appendix removed to avoid opiate withdrawal. Swear to God. I was stupid as hell. I will tell y'all the story at the end.
Objects. In fact, I don't experience them much at all unless they go wrong. And this is...
I'm used to doing like hour-long lecture reactions. These little 20-minute ones are going to be cake. It's almost over already, so I'm going to shut up.
Important, I think. Perception of the internal state of the body isn't about figuring out what's there, it's about control and regulation, keeping the physiological variables within the tight bounds that are compatible with survival. When the brain uses predictions to figure out what's there, we perceive objects as the causes of sensations. But when the brain uses predictions to control and regulate things, we experience how well or how badly that control is going. So our most basic experiences of being a self, of being an embodied organism, are deeply grounded in the biological mechanisms that keep us alive. Yeah. And when we follow this idea all the way through, we can start to see that all of our...
Have y'all heard about the stoned ape theory? I think it has a lot to do with our consciousness as well. Or at least how we got to where we're at. With our consciousness and how our neurons work in our brain.
Conscious experiences. Since they all depend on the same mechanisms of predictive perception, all stem from this basic drive to stay alive. We experience the world and ourselves with, through, and because of our living bodies. Let me bring things together step by step. What we consciously see depends on the brain's best guess of what's out there. Our experienced world comes from the inside out, not just the outside in. The rubber hand illusion.
That is true in spirituality too. You don't need to look outside, look inside. You'll find all the answers.
Shows that this applies to our experiences of what is and what is not our body. And these self-related predictions depend critically on sensory signals coming from deep inside the body. And finally, experiences of being an embodied self are more about control and regulation than figuring out what's there. So our experiences of the world around us and ourselves within it, well, they're kinds of controlled hallucinations that have been shaped over millions of years of evolution to keep us alive in worlds full of danger and opportunity, we predict ourselves into existence. Now, I'll leave you with 3 implications of all this.
This is a super cool way to look at it, I gotta admit.
First, just as we can misperceive the world, we can misperceive ourselves when the mechanisms of prediction go wrong. Understanding this opens many new opportunities in psychiatry and neurology because we can finally get at the mechanisms rather than just treating the symptoms in conditions like depression and schizophrenia. Second, what it means to be me cannot be reduced to or uploaded to a software program running on a robot, however smart or sophisticated. We are biological flesh and blood animals whose conscious experiences are shaped at all levels by the biological mechanisms that keep us alive. Just making computers smarter is not going to make them sentient. Finally,
I agree with that. I don't think AI is going to get to that. I do think they're going to kill us all and take over the planet and the universe because we're humans. We can't travel light years. You know, we die. Robots don't. If there's going to be anything that explores the universe, it's going to be these things that we create that end up taking over. Watch.
our own individual inner universe, our way of being conscious, is just one possible way of being conscious. And even human consciousness generally, it's just a tiny region in a vast space of possible consciousness.
If there's any aliens on the earth, it's those things, right? And that's why they chose the deep sea. We're one place that we can't be really for a while. Deep sea. Can't breathe. So, if there's an alien on the planet, it's them. It's octopus. They can fit through any hole that their eye can fit through.
Our individual selves and worlds are unique to each of us, but they're all grounded in biological mechanisms shared with many other living creatures. Now, these are fundamental changes in how we understand ourselves, but I think they should be celebrated because, as so often in science, from Copernicus, we're not at the center of the universe, to Darwin, we're related to all other creatures, to the present day. With a greater sense of understanding comes a greater sense of wonder and a greater realization that we are part of and not apart from the rest of nature. And
the only single thing is everything. Shout out Olin Baptiste III.
When the end of consciousness comes, there's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing at all. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Very good. I'm just going to go into the ending here, the conclusion. Very interesting first TED I have experienced. I enjoyed it. I don't know why I haven't gone down this route before. I've been learning for fun for almost a decade now, and I don't know how I didn't go down the TED Talk route. I enjoyed it. I like this guy, Anil Seth. I like it. Except I'm trying to move past the Western materialism viewpoint because we dumbed it down over here a lot. But, I mean, it is kind of the same thing. We are all a part of the same thing. We are all one. Everything is connected. That's why prayer works so well. If you made it this far, thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. I am unemployable. I am a fall risk outside of my house. And I can't type and look at the screen to work from home. So, the only way I'm going to be able to get an income is through this, getting monetized. I'm close to, but I'm still got a long way to go. If you would please consider helping, I would appreciate it. You can subscribe to my Patreon. You can buy a t-shirt. My CashApp is everything's in the description. And thank you again. I love you. I'll see you in the next TED Talk. Alright, for the 2 quick stories I promised you guys, I'm going to try to sum up my life pretty quick here. I had my first child when I was 16 years old. I didn't find out about her until I was 20.
I was married early, from late teens, 18, 19 to mid 20s. I had another child, so I have 3 kids with 3 different women in 3 different decades. But after me and my wife split, I went on a 10-year drug bender that commenced in a stroke that I had 10 years ago, and now I'm paralyzed on my left-hand side. And that's that story. That was a pretty quick summary. What else? Oh yeah, the appendix story. I used to go to hospitals like ERs. I called it ER surfing. To get pain meds and shit. I would just bounce around to different emergency rooms, telling whatever hurt. They can't turn you away. They just bill you. Of course, I never paid any of the bills, but don't do this with kids. Anyways, I was coming back from Kansas to Texas at one time, and before I left the state of Kansas, I saw a little town, and I said, I'm gonna hit this little hospital real quick. I went in, and I used the appendix thing a lot because you can kind of fake it. So I went in there, and they got me in there, and the doctor came in and checked me, and he said, "Oh yeah, classic appendicitis. We can do spend a bunch of money on imaging, or we can just take it out." And I said, "Just take it out." So that's that story. Go love somebody that you don't like, so you can love yourself properly. Thank you again for your support. It means the absolute world.